You said nothing, but they felt everything. They betrayed you and thought they knew your lines. The script was ready. You storm in, raise your voice, spill your pain across their stage. And in that moment, they'd get to point the finger and say, "See, look how emotional, look how unstable. I told you they were the problem." But imagine this instead. You don't show up to their play. No rant, no meltdown, no slammed door. Just silence. And suddenly the script collapses. Because silence is the one move they never rehearsed for. It leaves them holding all their justifications with no audience to perform for. Here's the paradox most people never realize. The loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Your absence becomes the presence. Your calm becomes the confrontation. And your silence becomes the mirror they can't escape. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." He wasn't saying, be passive. He was saying, don't feed their drama. Don't give them what they came for. That's the Stoic way. You don't win by shouting louder. You win by refusing to play their game at all. Stay with me, because in this video, you're going to learn how to turn silence into strength. Not fake calm, not cold detachment, but real inner power, the kind that makes your peace untouchable. And by the end, you'll see exactly why silence is the sharpest sword you'll ever carry. Section 1. The Betrayer's Playbook. When someone betrays you, they don't just act in the moment. They plan the whole play. They've already pictured your reaction, the angry texts, the midnight calls, the meltdown they can show others as proof that you're the problem. They even rehearse their shrug in the mirror. "See, I tried, but they're unhinged. Look at these messages." That's the trap. Your anger becomes their evidence. Your pain becomes their weapon. But here's what they never expect. Silence. No reply. No rant. No 3 a.m. voice note explaining every detail of your hurt. And without your reaction, their play falls apart. They're left holding a story with no ending, a performance with no audience. That's when the discomfort sets in. Because silence doesn't give them closure, it exposes their need for drama. And the longer you stay quiet, the louder their own guilt echoes in their head. This is the first rule of the Stoic playbook. Don't give your enemies the lines they're waiting for. Take away the script, and you take away their power. Stay with me, because in the next section, you'll see why silence isn't empty at all. It's full of answers. Section 2. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. Imagine a pond on a still morning. The water is calm, smooth, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Now picture tossing a stone into it. Ripples spread everywhere, breaking the reflection, distorting the image. That stone is every "how could you?" and every angry outburst you want to throw at them. The ripples are the chaos that follows when you try to force answers out of someone who's already betrayed you. Now, imagine leaving that water untouched. The surface stays calm, and the only thing staring back is their own face. That's what silence does. It forces them to see themselves without distraction. No arguments to twist, no words to manipulate, just the weight of their own choices staring back at them. And here's the truth. That reflection is more painful than any comeback you could ever craft. Because silence doesn't shield them from the truth, it locks them in a room with it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Silence honors that wisdom. It's not weakness. It's refusing to add noise to a situation that's already revealed everything you need to know. Most people think silence means you've lost. But in reality, silence is often the loudest verdict. And in the next section, I'll show you how to anchor yourself like a Stoic, so the silence doesn't just punish them, it strengthens you. Section 3. Anchor yourself like a Stoic. When betrayal hits, your first instinct is to lash out. You want to defend yourself, prove your worth, maybe even make them feel the pain they caused you. But the Stoics taught something radically different. Your real strength is not in controlling others, it's in controlling yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. In plain English, that means this: don't waste your energy trying to rewrite someone else's script. Focus instead on writing your own. Think of your mind like a fortress. The walls are your discipline, the gates are your judgment. Every rumor, every insult, every midnight text, those are enemies at the gate. If you leave the gate open, they march in and take over your peace. But when you anchor yourself, you decide who gets in and who stays outside. You realize, I can be hurt, but I don't have to be infected. I can feel the sting, but I don't have to carry the poison. This is what silence really is, not passivity, but protection. You're not ignoring the world, you're choosing what enters your inner circle. And here's the paradox. The more you practice this discipline, the calmer you become. The storm still rages outside, but inside the fortress, there's peace. Now, you may be wondering, if you're silent, does that mean they simply move on unbothered? Actually, no. In the next section, I'll show you the psychological trick silence plays on their brain and why it drives them restless. Section 4. What their brains do when you go quiet. Here's where modern psychology joins the Stoics. The human brain hates unfinished stories. It's called pattern completion, the need to close the loop. So when you don't reply, their mind can't rest. They replay the messages. They search for hidden meanings. They second-guess their own words. And every hour that passes without your reaction makes the silence heavier. Think about it. When someone ghosts you, haven't you caught yourself checking your phone over and over, wondering what your last text sounded like? That itch to know is exactly what silence does. It creates an open loop the brain must try to close. But here's the genius part. You're not the one suffering anymore. While you're quietly moving forward, their brain is doing overtime, filling in the blanks, inventing explanations, fighting ghosts you never sent. Your silence becomes their loudest conversation. It gnaws at them in the quiet hours of the night. It makes them wrestle with questions they can't answer. And in that restless searching, they start to feel something far worse than your anger. They feel the weight of their own actions without the cushion of your reaction. Now, maybe you're wondering, but what about closure? Don't we all need that final conversation to move on? In the next section, I'll show you why closure is a myth, and how real closure is something you give yourself, not something they deliver. Section 5. Closure is a DIY project. We've been told a lie about closure, that it comes from a final talk, a neat conversation where everything is explained and tied up with a bow. But you already know how those talks usually go. They don't bring peace. They reopen wounds. They turn into one more argument where you leave feeling emptier than before. The truth is, closure isn't something they can give you. It's something you decide for yourself. It's that quiet moment when you say, I'm done. I don't need their apology to move forward. Seneca put it simply, how much better to heal than to seek revenge. Real closure isn't about hearing them confess. It's about closing the book in your own hands. And here's the irony. When you refuse to hand them the stage for one last performance, you actually force them to sit with the silence they created. No final scene, no dramatic ending, just the echo of their own choices. Your silence becomes the last word. Your peace becomes the real ending. And once you realize closure was never in their hands, you'll stop waiting for it and start living it. Now, you might be thinking, that's fine for them, but what about me? What do I actually gain from staying quiet? In the next section, I'll show you exactly what silence does to you and why it transforms your inner world more than theirs. Section 6. What the quiet does to you. Most people think silence is just about punishing the other person, but here's the secret. Silence heals you more than it hurts them. When you stop rehearsing arguments in your head, you start to hear something you may not have heard in a long time, your own voice. The noise of what if and how could they begins to fade. And in that quiet, your nervous system finally exhales. Your shoulders unclench, your breath slows, your heartbeat steadies. Each silent day becomes another stitch, pulling their hooks out of your skin. You begin to remember who you were before their betrayal, not the person who was constantly defending, explaining, or proving, but the person who could laugh freely, rest deeply, and think clearly. That's the paradox of silence. It isn't disappearing, it's refining. Diamonds don't shout. They just endure pressure until they shine. And the same happens with you. The longer you stay in that quiet, the stronger and clearer you become. But let's be honest, staying silent isn't always easy. The urge to explain, to clap back, to set the record straight can feel overwhelming. So how do you actually hold the line when the temptation to break silence comes knocking? That's where practical drills come in. And in the next section, I'll give you 5 Stoic exercises you can use right now to keep your silence steady and your peace intact. Section 7. Keeping the quiet. Practical. Silence sounds powerful in theory, but in practice, it's hard. The phone buzzes, your chest tightens, and you feel that itch to fire back. So let's get tactical. Here are 5 Stoic drills to help you hold the line when the urge to react feels overwhelming. First, mute, don't block. Blocking looks like a fight. It screams, "You still matter enough for me to slam the door." But muting, that's quiet power. It's walking away without theatrics. Second, use the one-sentence rule. If you absolutely must reply, keep it dry and factual. Yes, the package arrives Friday. That's it. No explanations, no emotions. Third, guard a sacred hour every day. 60 minutes with no screens, no noise, no distractions. Just you and the air. Because silence with yourself is what makes silence with others possible. Fourth, keep a mantra ready. When the temptation to argue rises, repeat, "I don't RSVP to every battle." Say it until the urge passes. And fifth, keep a victory log. Each night, write down one way silence saved your peace today. Maybe you didn't answer that text. Maybe you walked away instead of snapping back. Stack those wins, and after a week, you'll feel your strength multiplying. Silence isn't passive, it's training. Every time you choose it, you build muscle. And soon enough, staying calm won't feel forced. It'll feel natural. But of course, silence doesn't mean they'll stop trying. In fact, sometimes your quiet makes them push harder. And in the next section, I'll show you exactly what happens when they try to drag you back and how to hold firm when they do. Section 8. When they try to drag you back. The test always comes. One day, out of the blue, your phone lights up with a simple, "Hey." At first glance, it looks harmless. But here's the translation. Let me see if the fence is still there. When silence holds, the messages change. "I guess you hate me now. I don't even know what I did. I thought you were different." That's not guilt speaking, it's bait. It's an invitation to step back into the play they've been dying to finish. And if silence still holds, the pressure rises. 1 text becomes 2. 2 become 5. Soon, you scroll through a stack of messages like a trail of breadcrumbs leading nowhere. But here's the power. Every unread bubble is proof that you've flipped the script. You're no longer chasing, no longer explaining, no longer auditioning for their approval. You've reclaimed the remote, and they're stuck watching reruns of their own mistakes. Most people break at this stage. They see the flood of texts and think, maybe I should answer, just to be civil. But silence isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's refusing to trade peace for performance. And the longer you hold it, the stronger the message becomes. You don't need their words to define your worth. But here's the question, what happens weeks or even months later? Do they forget? Or does silence stay with them long after you've walked away? In the next section, we'll talk about the long game and why regret always grows in the quiet. Section 9. The long game. Silence doesn't just win the moment, it wins the months that follow. Because here's the truth, regret grows in quiet places. At first, they might laugh it off. They'll tell their friends, whatever, I don't care. But then the weeks stretch on, and suddenly the silence starts to sting. Late at night, they replay the last conversation. They wonder why you didn't explode, why you didn't chase, why you didn't beg for answers. They expected fire, and you gave them air. And nothing unsettles a guilty mind more than being left alone with itself. Meanwhile, you're not playing chess, you're gardening. You're pulling out weeds of resentment, planting seeds of calm, watering your own peace. Your life grows lighter while their mind grows heavier. That's the beauty of the long game. You don't have to chase revenge. Time does the work for you. Because every day you stay silent, their imagination fills the gap. And imagination is always harsher than reality. One day the question creeps in, was throwing them away worth losing the best thing I had? And that whisper doesn't leave. It lingers in the background, like ivy climbing a wall, slow, quiet, and impossible to ignore. And you don't have to say a single word. Your silence asked the question, and their own conscience delivers the answer. But here's the final step. How do you move on without bitterness? How do you forgive without reopening the door? That's where we're headed in the next section. Section 10. Forgiveness without a microphone. Most people think forgiveness means reconciliation. That, to forgive, you have to sit down, hash it out, and walk away holding hands. But that's not forgiveness, that's performance. Real forgiveness doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need their apology. It doesn't even need them to know it happened. Forgiveness is for you. It's the quiet decision to put down the weight you've been carrying. It's realizing, I don't need to keep replaying their betrayal to prove it mattered. Epictetus said, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgment about them. When you forgive silently, you change the judgment. You stop seeing yourself as the wounded one and start seeing yourself as the free one. And here's the best part. It happens without fanfare. One day, you'll catch yourself smiling at something small, and you'll realize you haven't thought about them in weeks. That's forgiveness. Not a press conference, not a reunion scene. Just peace, quietly taking its place in your life. That's how you know you've truly mastered the silence. You didn't just win the argument they wanted. You ended the war they never expected you to walk away from. Now comes the most important part, the conclusion. Because silence isn't just a tactic. It's a philosophy, a way of life. And in the closing moments, I'll show you why walking away in silence is the ultimate victory. Conclusion. They expected your scream. They expected your tears, your anger, your desperate plea for answers. But you gave them nothing. And in that nothing, they heard everything. Because silence is not empty, it's loaded with meaning. It tells them, I will not play your game. I will not audition for your approval. I will not hand you my peace. That's the victory Stoicism teaches us. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of an empire, yet he wrote in his journal, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that's what you've done. You've discovered that your strength isn't in controlling others. It's in controlling yourself. You don't need revenge. You don't need explanations. You don't even need closure from them, because the real battle was never with them. It was with your own mind, your urge to react, your craving to be understood, your fear of being silent. And you've won that battle. So walk away today knowing this. The power is yours. The peace is yours. The silence is yours.